Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the MNCAA podcast, Gopher Show, That Gopher Hockey Puckcast. I am Drew Cove, joined as always with Nate Wells here out on the East Coast. It's bitter cold in Minnesota. That's why I'm wearing my beanie inside. But Nate, how does it feel? Who needs Canada, Nate? Who needs Canada when they don't even show up in the medal round 2 years in a row? USA is number one. We're going to get to that later in the show, but I just wanted to get that off the hop. Who needs Canada? Who needs them? Where are they? Not in the medal round. That's for sure. 2 years in a row. So we'll get to that more after we talk a little bit of Gophers here in episode 133, episode 133 of the MNCAA podcast. Nate, let's get started. Gophers played Mercyhurst 64 out of 64 in the pairwise rankings. It is January 2025, so we are able to say the word unapologetically now. That's the only disclaimer you're going to get from me at this point. If you listen on and you say, "Oh, that's too early," it's like, nope. You got to listen to all the shows back, people. So, but the Gophers beat, I think, is the number 4 team out of 64 in the pairwise. Beat number 64 out of 64 in very convincing fashion. 6-2 Friday night, 5-2 Saturday. It was definitely a bit of an offensive showing, especially in the early goings for the Gophers both nights, and then a little bit of a kind of a feeling out period in the second for both nights, especially Saturday, and then kind of closing it out with some Culvers for everyone in attendance at Mariucci, which was a surprisingly good attendance. It looked like both nights, even the early game and even with no students there. So looks like a lot of people in attendance. But Nate, your thoughts on the game against Mercyhurst, a team the Gophers haven't faced, I think, since 2021.
There always was. I enjoy seeing the Lakers come in. By the way, great sweaters for Mercyhurst. It's always
absolutely
just they shine there, and you're certainly right. New year, we can bring out the P word, bring out say pairwise. Mercyhurst certainly they're showing why they are 64 out of 64, which again it's kind of crazy to say that there's 64 teams in D1 men's college hockey. At least this year, we'll see where things go as far as the landscape of college hockey. But the Gophers, even shorthanded, having missing players, the World Juniors, missing several players with injuries. They shined when they needed to in a non-conference series, their last of the year against Mercyhurst. And, I mean, they scored 7 seconds into Saturday's game. They dominated the first 10 to 12 minutes of Friday's game where shots were 14-0. Shot attempts were 27-4. So you don't often see in 2025 in this era where you can go in and would have 17 players skating and play a team in college hockey and it being that's so lopsided. But I mean, this was the case this past weekend for the Gophers.
Yeah, it was certainly an onslaught early on. And Nate, as you mentioned, this was the third and fourth games that the Gophers have played short of forward. And that's not including Axel Begley being shifted up from his natural position of defense to forward and to fill out the lines. So Gophers definitely playing shorthanded, but a guy they got back, Nate, someone I want to mention talking about game 1, didn't show up in the score sheet in game 2, but Eric Paulson, he's back. It was good to see the freshman back, especially with August Falloon out and Brody Ziemer at World Juniors. Good to see another one of the impactful freshmen making an impact and at least being able to say, all right, we've got another body that we planned on being here in the lineup and ready to go. What'd you like from kind of seeing his return and his first couple games back after 10 games off before this past weekend and kind of getting into the swing of things, just like the rest of the team shaking off the rust into the head of the second half?
Yeah, he had a really nice reminder of what he was doing and where he was before he got injured. That series against Wisconsin, where the last one game that he played before getting injured, it seemed like that was his most consistent series that he had played in the college level. And I mean, coming in as an older freshman, I remember talking with USHL source about Paulson. He was just like, you are going to love him. His game translates well to college. He's going to make an impact right away. And that's been the case. You notice him on the ice. He plays well with skilled players. He can play anywhere in the lineup. And I mean, that's right now something that Minnesota needs right now. And he stepped back into Friday's game, it didn't really feel like that he missed 10 games. I know that the Gophers have had a lot of injuries, and I forgot how long that he was out for that reason. Because I was like, oh, yeah, it's a few weeks off. It's not too bad. Maybe missed a couple before that. But then I think I maybe kind of mixed up him with August Floon and maybe put him in that Mason Nevers when they got injured. But yeah, 10 games off, and just it didn't seem like it.
No, he came back with a force, showing up. I think a goal and assist in Friday's game, and certainly making an impact. And I think especially down the middle, he's a guy that really helps. That helps a lot. Kind of push other things out. Just to give everybody a little bit more options, especially while being shorthanded. But Nate, the main story from the weekend that I think you and I both agreed. After
sorry, you mean the main story besides the return of Drew Cove to the Mariucci Arena press box?
Yeah, it was a while. It had been to Mariucci. I've definitely been around. I've been around Ritter, I think, a couple times since then, but I think it's been since COVID. I remember last time was in there was with the friend of the show, Brian Deutsch, when his tenure was still going on with the Gophers media department as an SID for the hockey team. But yeah, it was fun to be back. I was there Saturday. It was nice to catch up, and I was one of the another friend of the show, Chris Eckes, came by at the very end. Yes. He wasn't in the press box, but he came by to help me ask some questions near the end, because I was one of the few media members in attendance at that game. So it was good to see everybody there and to be able to talk to a bunch of guys. But one guy I did talk to after the game, Alabama Huntsville legend, St. John's Johnny legend, and now Gopher legend, Nick Michael, one of the last two players born in the 90s to play for the Gophers. It's him and Liam Soulier were going to be the last players born in the 90s to play for the Gophers.
There's your trivia question for this week's episode. I mean, if you haven't gone back to the last episode that we had, that's just us remembering some guys for an hour, and it's beautiful for Gopher hockey. Do that, but before you do that, we now have a trivia question for this one. So
exactly, yeah. Please go listen to that one. That's a bit evergreen, at least for the next little while here, to remember some guys and over the last 50 years. But Nick Michael played a lot of different places. Was part of that the last Alabama Huntsville team. Played in D3 with St. John's for a couple of years, and came and ended up on the Minnesota roster last year. Didn't get any game time, but this year he's been thrust into the action, and you know what? He's been impactful, not just in being able to fill a lineup spot on one of the top teams in the country and to maintain their level of success, but scoring a goal, getting an assist in Saturday's game. It was a very good treat to talk to him. He was pretty fired up even after the game, even a while after the game, after his scoring took place. But gosh, Nate, what is it like to see? I know you've probably been around a lot of guys who have had that type of scenario, the guys who have been around this program for a while or a lot of other programs for a while, and kind of pop in and to be able to make their mark and to kind of have that moment for them after so long in college hockey.
Those are always the stories I love in college hockey. We are blessed to have some of the high-end skilled players that will go on to play in the NHL, will be the future superstars that grace the ice. But there's nothing better than seeing someone who just works their butt off, goes from place to place, spends time in juniors, spends time in a program before it goes dark, goes to D3, walks on to a D1 program, doesn't play for a year, does just pretty much is there as an extra body, and finds his way to get on the score sheet, finds his way to score a goal, have a multiple point game. There's nothing better than that. I love those stories, and just to see it, like I honestly, I could talk an hour about just those little stories. Seeing Nick Michael score goal, like it was the best part of the weekend for me, seeing that. Apologies to USA Hockey. Apologies to Eric Paulson coming back. Apologies to Jimmy Snuggerud and Matthew Wood, pretty much like getting his revenge on Hockey Canada. Mm-hmm. But man, Nick Michael's getting that goal, and I was like literally, I think I texted you after. I'm like, I'm so jealous that you are covering this game, because I would pretty much just write 500 words on this, and it'd be the greatest thing ever. I remember, and this isn't in the same level, this isn't the same territory, because the Gophers, every once in a while you get that where like you have those players. You have like those like Joey Millers, or you have your Jake Kramer, your third string goalies, where like they get into the game at the end and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so nice. But like in this case where like I remember Tom Serratori score, like who would rarely score, not someone that goes score sheet on senior night as a senior scoring, and I'm hoping that this is the game winning goal, because it's one of those things where like you can't write the story. Like when it happens, you take it, it's beautiful. But if you made it up before, like just how we're mentioning Nick Michael and how he came on in his journey to get into that goal. Like not all goals are created equal. Some are just beauties. Some are just you work your butt off and you get in the right place at the right time. Some of them just you're in the greasy areas and everything. And this is like the life equivalent of just working and being down in the tough spots in the greasy areas and getting that going there. It just, I love it. I love it
Exactly.
so much.
It's great to have guys like that are able to fill in that, like, in a lot of other programs, guys who are ready to play that don't get to play very often, and to kind of keep those guys in your stable and to keep them on the roster, to be those just in case guys. But it's hard to maintain that level because guys are going to want to play. But having a guy like that that's been ready to come in and not only just making an impact on the score sheet against Mercyhurst, but watching him off the like just when it wasn't a scoring situation, seeing kind of his effort level and his commitment to the way that this Gophers team plays, and like let it be known too that he was playing with everybody that night. He played with everybody. One of his goals I think had a snuggerud assist. He was on the ice with John Middlestat. Like all those guys were up and down. Like the lines were just a mess because they had to be. So like this is a guy who hasn't played really this level of college hockey up until the last 10 games. He comes into the lineup with a bunch of already established players who have been playing together for quite a while. He comes in, makes an impact while playing with all of them, and like I get he practices with them, but like I'm just saying it's impressive to come in on that scale at this level after kind of being at a different level for much of your early 20s, late teens, and to come in and make an impact like that right away as just being able to come in and make that impact is incredible. And I think he's definitely making the most of his opportunity. And he's been valuable for guys that it's next man up in this. And I think just kind of like talking to everybody after the game, it's just like that's kind of encapsulating what this team is, being able to step in and to complete the system. Even when all the pieces aren't necessarily the pieces you expected to be there aren't all there, and Nick Michael I think has filled that role marvelously.
It feels like a team that this entire stretch will help them in the long run, where just you have to fill in when you can, and you have just college hockey in general. It's like you have a Nick Michael with Jimmy Snuggerud, or one of them is going to be in the NHL in April. One of them has worked insanely hard to get to there. Everyone is playing with everyone. Everyone is studying themselves up for success. And when the Gophers are able to get back a little bit more healthy, you get back your World Juniors players, it's going to just send a statement to the lineup, and you're going to be better off because you have your lower players playing up in higher roles, and you have your higher players playing with others than some of the high end talent guys. So you're able to mix and match more when you need to. You have the depth that is showing there, and I'm still pumped about that Nick Michael goal. Like you can tell, it's like seriously, it's that. Penn State had a goalie from the club team walk on and win a couple games earlier this year. I think it was Merrimack who also had like the club goalie like play in when they need, or no, it's like their equipment manager or something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like
you get those fun and good stories that like happen, but like you don't see too often in the forward. Usually it's the goalies because you're kind of lost in the depth. But
exactly, and it was great to see, especially because it just not to kind of try and compare it to past years all too much, but it's different than Bob kind of shoehorning in a one night one out, or like one night on one night off for like a Pinanimi and Strobel, and not saying that those guys aren't good players, but I'm saying that like Michael seems more suited for this role at this time of his career at the D1 college level than those guys were last year. And it just seems that like they have that extra option that it's not like, okay, we're giving people a try Friday, Saturday, and then so on and so on. But it's a guy who, if you need him one Saturday, he'll be able to sit for 3 more weeks, and then you need him for another 3 games, and it's going to be exactly the same when you call upon him again.
He's the Leroy Horde of the Gophers, is what you're saying. He's gonna get you. He'll get you what you need. You need 2 yards, he'll get you 2. You need 5 yards, he'll still get you 2. But he has it. And oh man, but you were there. Like, how excited was everyone? Like when he had that goal, when he got it. Like it feels like you can kind of. It feels like you can feel that energy, and it translates to like the team. Like when people are like when your teammates are excited for you, when teammates are invested in everyone's success, like it shows on the ice.
And just for the camaraderie and the bonding, like obviously these guys are always together and we just don't see them all on the ice at the same time, just because of most of the time we just see them all together in games. But obviously these guys are always a lot closer to the guys who maybe aren't playing or regularly playing. They're all a lot closer than we might think because they're just always around each other in practice and everything like that. But just seeing the mentality on the bench, I saw Axel Begley go up before the game started, just almost go up and just grab it, like kind of just give a pat to some guy, like almost half the bench right as the game was about to get started, and just like, all right, here we go, like just kind of pumping everybody up. It's like, man, you're not the captain, but like you're out here doing this, and you're just like this is such a comfortable moment for everybody involved, and that, you know what, they're down a player, Begley's playing forward, you know what, we're gonna make it work, and that just kind of shows, I think, with how close this team is. But you mentioned the excitement, that goal. Ryan Chesley, he was the first to grab that puck out of the net. He tossed it right to Jeff Winslow. It was quite a fun scene. And I saw close-up video from our friend Jupe, who was between the benches at that time, get a nice video of the big smile on his face, to kind of after, and talking to him afterwards, he was still pretty just psyched for Nick, and just kind of seeing what the guys who aren't regularly playing can do for this team. And I think they're all so on board with it. It does seem like a very good indicator of where the team is at in terms of just a cohesive group, especially at this point in the season. It's wild.
Yeah, it's certainly. I mean, I feel like that you had a little bit of a blue collar mentality. I mean, the rub on the Gophers is, they're a team of stars. They're maybe a little bit more soft, and you see the skill, and there's still a lot of skill there between Snuggerud and Wood, and you got Ziemer there and Oliver Moore. I mean, among others, but I could probably just keep going down and naming names. Sam Ramsell.
That's what we do on this podcast.
Mason Nevers. Yeah. Our podcast is like half recap, half like we just name some guys.
Yeah, exactly. We love who doesn't love remember some guys.
Remember some guys. It's honestly it's my favorite. but like this, like, so you still have that high end talent, but like you certainly feel that, like, that little bit of that blue collar work ethic going on, and just they're meshing really well right now. And we'll see a little bit more as the Gophers get back into Big Ten play for next weekend and the rest of the season, how that goes, especially as they get more healthy. But I mean, against some of the teams that they've been playing, you're seeing that throughout the year.
Yeah, exactly. Transitioning away from that, maybe the blue collar. Obviously, I think all these guys work really hard, but away from the blue collar identity, I guess, is the first round picks and the guys who are the bona fide scorers for this team. Jimmy Snuggerud, I thought he had a great weekend across both games. 2 goals, 2 assists. He finished the weekend with the most shots of anyone in college hockey at this point, which is no surprise to anyone who's watched him in the last 2.5 years already. But yeah, most shots in college hockey right now. Yeah, 2 goals, 2 assists on the weekend. Looked really good. Matthew Wood, as you alluded to earlier, showing Team Canada who needs Matthew Wood. I guess they did, and they sent him back, and he just decided to score within 7 seconds of the Saturday game opening up, and hitting about 2 other posts in that game as well. He had 2 goals, 1 assist on the weekend. Nate, just kind of seeing some of the guys at Team Canada, not to turn into Team Canada fan line, but Team Canada left behind a few interesting names, especially those related to college hockey, and Matthew Wood was one of them, and it certainly seemed like he could have, based on his results throughout the year, it seemed like he would have been a very good very good player to help Canada maybe at least maybe reach for a bronze medal or something like that.
Hockey Canada, you done messed up. I don't know. You have Matthew Wood in your graphs, and you don't take him. Look, it felt a little bit like that old school of Hockey Canada. It's like, hey, the CHL, we have these players. They're going to do great. They're a lot of skill. We're going to run around like it's 2005, and they tried to run around like 2005, and it's not. USA Hockey is a lot better. There's a lot more skill. You have Finland, you have Czechia, you have Sweden. These are all some great teams, and you can't do that. You can't do that in 2025. You certainly have to go back to the drawing board. And what worked well in the 2000s when you're on that run of great gold medal wins, it's not working now. It's not going to work. This is a different era. It's a different game. Matthew Wood plays a style and of skill and strength that would work really well in your lineup, and you didn't take him. But the Gophers, they will take that any day, and especially one where, hey, they only had 17 skaters. Just imagine, seriously, that's the thing. Just imagine how worse this weekend would have been if you didn't have Matthew Wood in your lineup. I mean, the Gophers probably still would have come away with the hypothetical 4-6 points in the weekend in non-conference play, but it really helps when you have a Matthew Wood who can get the puck right away and score within 7 seconds. And that's any chance of looking at an upset kind of goes down the wayside when you're already you blink and you're down 1-0. I mean, it came really close to doing so on Friday night too, and it's just the domination there where you're getting a point where it's Matthew Wood getting 3 points on the weekend seems like a regular occurrence. He's getting that consistency when he's healthy. Jimmy Snuggerud, 4 points. Again, it's just you're finding the consistency that you really were hoping to have for the Jimmy Snuggerud when he's coming back for his junior season. He's having the shots. He's playing roles. He's setting up his teammates, but mostly like he's getting goals in different ways, and he's having that consistency that you did not see, especially in the second half of last season. That was certainly missing. He doesn't look like a different player, but he looks like a better player. And I mean, again, kind of the same way where, St. Louis's loss is certainly Minnesota's gain right now.
Well, I think St. Louis's immediate loss is St. Louis's gain in the future. That seems to be what, obviously, as people who pay attention to the NHL too, have just seen that the mishandling of prospects by so many teams in the league, including a team that has drafted plenty of Gophers over the years, the Buffalo Sabres. They don't know how to leave their guys to marinate long enough. And obviously there's a fine line between suppressing a guy in the minors and kind of killing or like holding back earning potential or something like that. But still, it's like, you've got to make sure these guys are ready to go. And St. Louis being reluctant to have Snuggerud come back, I guess, even though they wanted to sign him, have him come back and to make these strides, they have to be absolutely like very, very pleased seeing this development, because you just got to trust. I mean, the Minnesota system is a good developmental system, and it gets guys ready for whatever next stage they have. And the longer you stay, the better you get at college. And you play against a lot of, like, you're not playing against a bunch of 30-some-year-old AHL guys, but you're playing against the best of that age group, and they're kind of getting more physical, getting better at kind of honing in their game, being a star, so that way they can maybe translate all those skills and take them to the next level. So, I mean, St. Louis's immediate loss, I think they might be a little happier in the future, even if they don't make the playoffs this year. I think they'll be happier with a more complete player right from the get-go in Jimmy Snuggerud. And
he's closer to dominating college hockey in a way that you're like, he's ready for the next level. And there are times last year where you could kind of say the same things, but I don't think it was that same consistency. So having him come back for this season is, you can tell the difference. And I'm really glad that more and more organizations are open to this option. And I'm glad that more players are for taking that extra year and taking that step back. It might be hurting for short term, but in the long term, it's very well for their development and for the long-term success. I mean, I'm just going to point out, like, Matty Nyes had his first hat trick over the weekend in the NHL. And I mean, he's certainly someone along that same lines where he could have left after one season. He could have come in a season before he did. And he was happy taking the time and growing and developing. And you see that. And you can tell the difference between someone who goes too early versus someone who stays maybe a year longer than you were suspecting.
Yeah, it's good to see too, and to have him, especially when the team is facing just not necessarily a transitionary year, but you could if he leaves, it turns into, all right, who's the bona fide star? And Matthew Wood doesn't come in, and It could be a whole lot of different changes too. But speaking of Team USA heroes, Jimmy Snuggerud very included in that and his World Junior participation. Move on to the World Juniors. Another reason why the Gophers roster was so thin. Brody Ziemer and Oliver Moore were out at the World Juniors, and what certainly was a win for the college hockey game, with USA triumphing and Canada kind of falling apart. Not kind of falling apart, absolutely falling apart.
They fell apart. Well, we can't mince words. This isn't like a Canada is up in arms about a group of teenagers not performing well. It was, they were not set up, and the world has caught up.
Exactly. And college hockey won in that sense, and also college hockey won just because Team USA won, and the Gophers won. They got 2 more gold medals for players at the World Juniors. I wasn't able to watch a whole lot of it. I do not have NHL Network with my YouTube TV subscription, but in the things that I did see, the team just looked resilient, even especially against, like, it was close against Czechia near the end, and then boom, they find a way to ice it. They find a way to keep the pressure on, make Czechia draw a penalty, and then boom, they're into the gold medal game, and then winning in overtime too. It was a good team, and I think obviously if you look over the last 8 years, the U.S. has 4 golds, 1 silver, and 2 bronze medals. So it's a pretty good track record for the Team USA team that a lot of people I know, certainly older than me, that didn't remember a lot of World Juniors fondly because the U.S. was kind of a non-factor for a very long time. And it's just a testament as to where the U.S. game has come from just the youth level and high school level and now college level, but mainly the development team in Michigan has just been astounding, and especially it's another testament to the college game too. It's just how college has just come to develop players so much better, ready for this best on best at that age bracket stage. It's turning out a bunch of really good hockey players and a really good hockey team, and can't be understated how much David Carl is just such an incredible coach. And seeing on Twitter too, after being at the Frozen Four last year, it was hearing him say, I'm not planning on leaving, and then all the prognostication on, he's ready for the NHL. Someone's going to be offering him. It's like, well, yeah, somebody might be offering him, but he's like he said last year, he's like, I got a pretty good thing going on in Denver, and maybe he's got a few more World Junior golds under his belt too. So by that point,
I mean, he really does, especially when you look at the guy he coached under and replaced, Jim Montgomery, where. Mm-hmm. I mean, he got ran out of Boston. He's still in the recycling of head coaches, but it's, Dave Haxtell has went through a couple places. David Quinn has. The grass isn't always greener in the pro ranks. It's certainly, the money is, the opportunities are, but sometimes if you're happy doing what you are and developing collegians and creating your own legacy in college, then go ahead and do that. I certainly think David Carl is one of the great young head coaches in the sport. So it's great to see them, especially more on the USA hockey side. Always winning these World Juniors, and then then with Denver if you're a Gopher fan. But it's just it's great to see USA hockey be kind of what they were hoping the program would do for the sport. And you have these players from all over the country coming together. It feels like you've seen about 10, 15, 20 years of preparation and development into creating just a dominant group that is able to compete with Canada, compete with Finland and Sweden on a yearly basis. And just, back-to-back golds for the first time ever in the World Juniors. Next year is literally a home World Juniors as well. For Minnesota, so that's fantastic. And from the Gopher side, it's just you want to see where this propels Brody Ziemer, where this propels Oliver Moore. I thought we saw a little bit more confidence from Oliver Moore in the second half last year, and how much of that it comes from playing best on best in his age group can certainly contribute to it, where he certainly felt more comfortable in the college game in the second half. I want to see if that's going to be the case with Brody Ziemer. Coming in freshman in his role is one of the toughest to do in college hockey. The Gophers could certainly use that from him. They could use that from Oliver Moore. And I think that said, I think we've seen the most consistency that you have in the lead up to the end of the first half. So I'm really excited to see what happens with Oliver Moore for the Gophers and have him be kind of step up into that option, especially if you have a consistent Jimmy Snuggerud, if you have a consistent Matthew Wood, if Connor Kurth is still contributing the way that he's been, if Jimmy Clark is kind of taking that step up. It's there are a lot of things to like about the Gophers. So before I start naming even more people on this team.
Exactly, Nate. I mean, 5 points in 7 games for Oliver Moore, a point a game. Brody Ziemer. He was assisted on the game winner in overtime in the final in the gold medal match. So, yeah, like you said, back-to-back goals for USA Hockey for the first time ever. That's incredible. And seeing just where USA Hockey is at is certainly incredible. And the bad part for the Gophers is that they're going to have to play against a lot of those guys that were on the same team as their stars. Trey Augustine is number 1 on the list, I think, from just his Stonewall.
It was funny watching a couple of them where you're like, I can tell the difference between playing your age group versus playing in college hockey. Like Danny Nelson in Notre Dame was one of them where I'm like, you stood out a little bit with the Fighting Irish, but it was just like it was a huge difference watching him play against as like a 19-year-old in this tournament versus suit up for the Irish, and it's like you see that like, you can see the difference, and it says like how much harder it is to play college hockey weekend in and weekend out against older players.
Exactly. And speaking of bringing it back to college hockey, playing against older players, let's take a look around the conference from what the rest of the Big Ten did this weekend. And the rest of the Big Ten did play each other this past weekend. This is the weekend that we talked about a long time ago, early in the season, maybe even in the offseason, that the Gophers were going to be the 1 of 7 to sit out the outdoor game on the reuse of the ice at Wrigley Field for the Winter Classic. The Gophers said, thanks, no thanks. We're going to sit this one out.
Bob was like, I will volunteer us. That's fine. Go have
We're going to stay home, be the odd 7th wheel there and play Mercyhurst at home and just have a good, relaxing post New Year's time. But yeah, the Gophers sat out that outdoor bonanza at Wrigley Field. Penn State and Notre Dame, they tied 3-3 Friday, but then Penn State came back and won 3-0 on Sunday. Michigan State beat Wisconsin in OT on Saturday, 4-3 on that Wrigley Field ice. And then Ohio State, the Gophers' next opponent, Ohio State and Michigan split. Ohio State won 4-0 or 4-3 on Friday. Michigan 3-2 overtime win on Sunday. So a bit of a split there, not as contentious as the football rivalry between those two, of course. But the Gophers, the real U of M now gets to play Ohio State this coming weekend. Nate, what do you think? Certainly, I think Ohio State has snuck up on a lot of people, given their a little bit of a reduced standing in the conference the last couple of years. They might have fallen off of some people's radar, but as it stands today, they're number 9 in the pairwise. Gophers are number 4. That's and they're ranked number 11 in the poll. They have a 14-5-1 record. The Ohio State Buckeyes, from their I don't know how to put it. What's the best way to put it? Like Lake Mariucci was a thing. What do you call a building that's just way too darn big? I don't know.
It's like the Canyon. Oh man, I had one of the times I was there covering it. It was 2 things. One, it was really dead. It was just really dead. I think it was a break or something. And I am about 100 feet above everyone else because they close off all the upper decks and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm still up in the upper press box. It was me and like the Ohio State student people, like workers. And it was like the saddest thing ever. I just felt like I was like literally just like watching everything by myself. And I give them credit. At least they had food. They had food pretty much for me. And that part was nice, but it was the most depressing thing because I was there. And then the other thing I remember from either that trip or it was a different trip was the wildfired Mike Yo in the middle of the game. And so then I was covered there for like the Pioneer Press. So then they were just like, all right, well, now you have this many words to cut for the game. And the game like went to overtime because Ohio State scored with like literally 0.0 seconds left.
Oh boy. I think I remember that game.
And it was like delete. All right,
Yep.
well, just put everything together. Your deadline's moved up. Can you put everything together? Do you have anything about Mike Yeo being fired? And it was like, no, because it was a stretch where like you knew he was getting fired for about a month, but they actually pulled
Yeah.
the trigger
Mm.
on that day. So
Hmm.
it was. I remember those two things for the Buckeyes, and
Gosh.
the shot is they've done more with it, and they've done more with it in recent years, but it's too big. What I really the day that the Ohio State actually has a decent hockey arena is the day that college hockey is in trouble because it's the women's is too small and too outdated. The men's is too big, and you can't get a great atmosphere. Even when you have like 8,000-9,000 people when they put
Hmm.
Michigan when they play Michigan, it's still just it's too big for that. But they get like a good like 4,000 or 5,000 seat arena and are able to kind of pack in and put things together. It's gonna be a crazy atmosphere. The fans there do love the Buckeyes, and just putting that into players and telling you, hey, you're going to Ohio State. We have the brand behind you. You have the money behind you. That's gonna be a game changer in college hockey.
Yeah, and it's crazy, especially in the ill-fitting digs, let's say, for both teams. But the men's team at their cavernous arena, they are 8-0-1 at home this season, Nate. So it's going to be a tough battle for the Gophers. I don't think. I mean, like a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, it's Ohio State. When have they ever been good at hockey?" They've been good at hockey very recently and for a while. And St. Paul's own Steve Rollick, I think, is largely behind doing more with. I won't say less because it is Ohio State, but with a bit interesting setup from arena standpoint and kind of the hockey autonomy in terms of their presence in the athletic scope is a bit diminished compared to places like Minnesota and Wisconsin and even Michigan. So Steve Rollick doing a lot to make that team competitive, to making that team certainly what it has been the last few years. But it's not going to be a cakewalk for the Gophers. It's going to be a much different series coming in after obviously playing Mercyhurst, but certainly a wake-up call after the little bit of a rust shake-off to the rest of the Big Ten season that starts this coming weekend.
Big Ten hockey is back, as the ad goes.
Oh
But
yeah.
oh yeah, no, but you're right. Rollick he knows his team. He knows to get the most out of his players. They might not always be the most talented. They certainly have a lot of talent, but he's been able to develop some really good players. You kind of see that. You see that in the NHL. Some of the players that have come in to the program. It almost makes last year a bit of an outlier where they brought in so many transfers. Just they weren't able to gel and kind of build that culture you expect from the Buckeyes. So that first half where just everyone really struggled and they weren't able to win games and just things would fall apart seems a little bit more than the exception, more than what you expect from Ohio State. And I mean, even with that, the second half was a little better. They kind of did it a bit under the radar. They learned a bit more to win. Those players, many of them are still around. And this year, the transfer portal, they only brought in 3 players, but all 3 have been home runs. You look at the top of their score sheet. Their three are the top 3 players there are their 3 transfers, and Riley Thompson, who scored the game tie and the game winner against Michigan. And I mean, they came back from down 3-2 to beat Michigan. I mean, that's the biggest win of the season for them. Aiden Hansen, I'm blanking on what the other hyphen is on his name, from RIT, just a graduate defenseman, kind of brings that stability that the Buckeyes really need on the blue line that they've been missing since Mason Lowry left. And of course, the greatest name in college hockey, Gunnar Wafontaine.
Boom.
Beanpot legend Gunnar Wafontaine there as his graduate season. And the Buckeyes, they've beaten the teams that they should beat. Other than the series against Princeton, they got swept in Jersey over Thanksgiving weekend. They struggled against kind of the teams that they should. That win against Michigan was huge, and kind of 2 good performances there puts them up a little bit in there. But it's college hockey. Good wins help. Avoiding bad losses help even more, and that's for the most part has been the case with the Buckeyes. They haven't had the strongest schedule, same as Minnesota. You look at that 8-0-1 record. I think Penn State, those 2 wins there are the highest team. They're all in the bottom half of the pairwise. But it's going to be a challenge for Ohio State having Minnesota in town, it's going to be a challenge for Minnesota playing Ohio State. That building, as cavernous as it is, has never been an easy place for the Gophers to play. Even in down years last season, they kind of struggled. They gave points away that would have helped them down the line. So I'm really excited to see what happens with this weekend. To kick off the second half of the season, you get back Brody Ziemer, get back Oliver Moore. That's going to certainly help fill out the lineup. Hopefully, get a little bit more healthy as the weekend, and as the season goes on. But it's a great test for the Gophers returning and staying in Big Ten play the rest of the way.
Nate, I couldn't have said it better myself, but yeah, this does set us up for a good end to this podcast. But it's a very interesting to see with Ziemer and Moore back in the fold, and even some of the injured players. Hopefully, we get an update on their availability soon to kind of have certainly what the Gophers have had struggling wise from a lack of players to fill out a full lineup. It'll be nice to have a few guys have to sit rather than having to kind of reach and play shorthanded. So. It should be an interesting series. Nate and I will be watching. We're going to bring it all back to you come next week after the games. But until next week, Nate, I think that does it for us. For Nate Wells and Drew Cove, I am Drew Cove on the MNCAA podcast. Until next time, we will see you at the rink.